All right, so are we good to go there, Steph? What do you think?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Okay, well, um, so for those who don't know me, I'm Kirsten Enemark, formerly the vice chair, now apparently the chair of the Community Economic Development Committee. I think I think most of you are aware that Vaughn has stepped down as chair. And I've sort of stepped into a role, so you will all have to be very patient with me as I learn the proper protocols in managing a committee meeting. But welcome you all here, and Steph, to your point with the agenda, we could for good to start, maybe we'll then just do a round of introductions.
Sounds great.
Okay. Maybe I'll just, Steph, would you like to?
Sure. I think you guys know me. I'm Steph Short. I'm the staff liaison. And I know all of you, but I'd like to introduce my boss, Liam Edwards, who's the Chief Administrative Officer, and he's going to start joining us for the Community Economic Development meetings. Liam, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here, and looking forward to getting to know some of you that I've not met before. I worked closely with Jamie and Jody and Kirsten before too, so happy to be working with you three again too. So looking forward to it.
Great. Do you want me to run this, Kirsten? Jody, you want to say hi? You probably
Hello, good evening or good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jody Lorenz. I'm here representing Tourism Bowen Island.
Thanks. Jamie, do you want to say hi?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jamie Schaefer. I'm the director at the Hearth Gallery down here in the Cove. Nice to meet the new faces.
Brian?
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Haley. I'm a fairly recent appointee, so I've only had one meeting under my belt, so I still have a number of people to get to know. Thank you.
Thanks. Roger?
Hi, Roger Lyons. And like Brian, this is also my second meeting, and I've memorized all the protocols.
Awesome. And Cooper?
This is also my second meeting, and I have not memorized all the protocols. So we have a pretty fresh committee, it seems.
Can I ask how the three of you are, sort of what you represent or where you're from? I don't know any of your faces, so
I think I'm largely representing myself. There's no larger organization behind what I'm doing other than I'm a resident and care about these things.
Thank you.
So maybe I'll speak next. I'm Brian Haley. I'm a recent retiree, having moved to Bowen to retire after 35 years at the City of Toronto as the Director of Planning and Development Law. So I'm sort of looking forward to the Bowen Island version of development in the City of Toronto.
So it's a little larger than Bowen.
It's slightly, but a lot of the principles still apply.
Sure.
And again, I'm Roger. I am a contractor into technology, and probably the latest thing of interest is I have been working with the LTSA, so the Land Administration for BC in town, and that actually led me to being interested in getting more involved in what's happening in the Bowen community.
We got some land issues that we could use your expertise on, I'm sure.
Okay, good.
Looks like Lieven is going to join us after all. And this is Councillor Jurgensen on the iPhone SE.
Hello.
Hi, Councillor.
Hi.
Councillor, welcome to the meeting. We were just doing a bit of a roundtable introduction because we do have some new faces. Of course, this is Kirsten now chairing the committee. And you know, I guess as a reminder too, as we all sort of make comments and as we all chime in, just to make sure we're identifying ourselves so that we're all clear on who is speaking at what point.
Thank you. That's much appreciated.
Yeah.
As for myself, as has been noted, my name is Alex Jorgensen. I'm one of the counselors and the counselor that sits on the Economic Development Committee on behalf of council. My background is in physical rehabilitation and for the blind, deaf, blind, being blind myself. I also have worked in the IT services industry as well. And really, I'm quite interested in the interplay between economics and how the island functions as a whole, and where those things come together and where it comes together with local government. Also been very much enjoying the weather lately, as it's been fairly sunny. I don't know. That's me.
Perfect.
Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Jurgensen. And then lastly, Levin just joined.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for being late. It's as you just said, Alex, the weather is too beautiful to be behind the Zoom now, but I surrendered to coming over to the meeting anyhow and not being in the garden alone. Joined the committee now a year ago. Really eager to contribute as much as I can, and at the same time involved in quite a lot of regional development projects and resilience projects with mostly healthcare departments and healthcare organizations across North America. Being grateful being part of the community in our quest also and finding the right solutions for our, I don't call them economical challenges anymore only. It's really socio-economical challenges. And I think our name has been really well chosen 2 years ago to be in the Community Economic Development Committee. So what does community economics really mean? And that's the passion I have. So and that's why I'm glad to join again today.
Okay, well, thank you so much. So Kirsten, as chair, we just thought we would then want to look at our agenda. I think the next piece, Steph is, be sure to correct me if I'm wrong, but our next step here with the meeting is just the approval of the agenda, that the Community Economic Development Committee, that we approve the agenda as is, unless there are any late items to be added.
I
And
thought
Mhm.
we have a spot for other business at the end. I've got a couple of items to slot in there as surprises.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I asked a question to Steph and Jody helped out as well, but I was sort of curious why we don't have an MRDT on Bowen and like to sort of put that on the agenda for now or maybe our next meeting to talk about, because we're really the only municipality in like the lower mainland that doesn't have one, which is a little weird considering we're the Economic Development Committee and a lot of our economy is tourism.
So why don't we put that in 5.4 then, the MRDT? Okay.
And so if we're going to talk about that, do we want to talk about the empty, sorry if it's not the correct name, but the empty home tax or whatever that was recently, because Bowen is exempt from that as well. And that was something that came up at the Rural Economic Forum about that. And
Sure.
yeah.
We can put that under there too. Okay, with that then.
So with those revisions, could I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
Levin?
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And then a second motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Doesn't appear so. All right, excellent. Okay, so moving on. Second item is the adoption of minutes from our last meeting, March 29th. Looking at the minutes, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look through them, but again, would like to just ask one of the members to put a motion in front to approve the minutes from our last meeting on March 29th.
Steph, it's Brian Haley. I'll move the adoption of the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Cooper
Seconder?
McGuire, I'm happy to second it again.
Excellent. Thank you. And so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Counselor?
Oh, sorry, that was I don't know if it came. I voted aye.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, then that's great. So moving along. Public comments. So Steph, I believe we don't necessarily,
No
Is
one
this-
from the public is here.
okay, so nobody reached out in advance to then appear to the committee. So moving on to the next point then. So business arising from the minutes. One is the ratification of the email recommendation regarding the Metro Vancouver rezoning application for Cape Roger Curtis. I know there was a lot of back and forth in terms of, the action item for us at our meeting in March was to make a recommendation to Mayor and Council in regards to the economic development activity of Cape Roger Curtis. A little bit of back and forth in terms of what our recommendations were. This was refined and, as I understand, was put in front of Mayor and Council. However, we do just want to reflect in our meeting minutes here that it has been approved by the committee. So on that front, once again, could I please have a motion from one of the members to ratify the recommendation that did go to Mayor and Council in regards to Cape Roger Curtis?
Can you see it on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, just so we don't have to read it out. It's so long.
Yes, I was going to start to read it out, and I thought that could
Mm.
actually take up the 5 minutes that's been allotted.
Yeah, council's already seen it. And
Councillor Jurgensen, you're okay with that? Are you?
Asked for that to be read out, but in this case, I have seen this before and I'm comfortable with waiving that. Thank you for asking.
Could I add something here? As I feel this like being in an inconvenient truth, and I don't know whether we as a committee have a role to play here, but the Cape Roger Curtis has been the story of the last months, but also since the last March meeting we had together and now. And I truly believe like it comes with so much economical impact. If you now already look to the kind of circus that we have with the ferry in the last few weeks, and then seeing all of these things coming up is, and I also mentioned that during our last meeting, there's a real governance issue here, is who's going to take decisions on what. And what role do we want to play next to the council also in bringing economical risks and rewards forward and building things like Cape Roger Curtis forward. And it's not reflected in the email. It's also not, we didn't take it as a conclusion last time, but I'm really worried, speaking as a member of the committee, that we missed the boat on the bigger economic perspective here. And also reflecting, and you were part of that, Jody, when we had that commissioner of BC Ferries in the room also at the conference, even mentioning that ferry lines cannot be seen as kind of first need for islanders, but that it's like a kind of right for everyone. I think we completely missed the boat on seeing the economical necessities of some conditions around this. And how do we use this as a benefit for ourselves as an island and not as a kind of something we drag with us? And I'm concerned with that. And I don't know whether, so we can approve this email, but I want to raise the concern to us as a committee. What is our role as an economic committee to the island of integrating such a big project into an economical benefit for the long term? And it's not only about a little stall to sell something. That's minor to the economical impact on the infrastructure we need to build. And I'm sitting with that since end of March. So, and I believe we need to play a role in that. So that's my point of view also. So I want to have said that.
No, thank you, Lieven, for your comments. And, I do think what we did reflect too in our draft that went to Mayor and Council is that we're still awaiting some reports on the volume of tourism that's expected on the transportation plan. I think we acknowledged that we needed more information too to further refine our comments. And I think that'll come in due course. So thank you for those comments. I think the second item that we're just seeking ratification as well is in terms of the Community Economic Development Committee work plan and budget review.
Oh, hold on. We need to vote on the ratifying the CRC
Oh, yes.
recommendation. Yeah.
Fair
So
enough.
just
It's Brian Haley speaking. I'll move the the ratification of the recommendations.
thank you.
And is there a second?
McGuire speaking. I'll happy to second that.
Thank you, Cooper. So all in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, who is opposed? None?
Again, that was, I think, but it was in assent, not in opposition.
Okay,
May I suggest, just because of the latency of Zoom sometimes, that we use nay for the opposition and aye for the ascension. That way, this could perhaps be avoided.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor.
No problem.
Okay. Thanks, Kirsten.
Okay. So what?
So the budget.
So next item is the budget, that there's a draft budget that was included with the agenda. Again, the budget did go to mayor and council, I believe. And so once again, we're just looking for the, sorry, Steph? Am I,
So I'm sorry, Kirsten, I wasn't super clear earlier. The budget hasn't gone to mayor and council, but they have given us our budget. So we
oh,
have,
that's right.
we've been allocated $13,000 for economic development work, but we haven't approved our own work plan. It's similar to what we discussed last time, only we took out those business grants, partly because the CFO is undergoing overarching policy work around monetary contributions to external organizations. A and B, Vaughn and the mayor and I were the subcommittee on that, and we didn't really get it together to, yeah. So I'm just going to screen share, and then Vaughn's gone. And so we're just going to leave that out for this year and see if we can consider it for next year. But for now, can you see the budget work plan?
Yes.
Yes.
And sorry, Counselor, it's on the agenda. Item
Thank you.
4.28 in the agenda.
Oh. Perfect. I got that here. Thank you.
Okay, good. We've done this already, so we'll just quickly go through. We'll keep some money for speakers if we'd like. The Buy Local campaign is a 25. That's what we spend annually. Our British Columbia Economic Development Association membership, nothing new there. The Rural Islands Economic Partnership, we've got 45 allocated. That can be contribution for donating support, memberships, travel that you guys, some of you just enjoyed, registrations. And then line 19, the Economic Development Plan Implementation Strategy Engagement Events. It's not broken out, but it will depend on what all these new members, what your priorities are for the initiatives. And that will come up later in item 5.4. And something penciled in for updating the newcomer guide. We'll see if we get to that, but it's penciled in for now. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Steph.
Not too different from what we agreed on last time.
That's great. So are there any comments before we go to a vote? On that note, if I could have a member of the committee, please put a motion forward to recommend that council approve the 2023 CEDC work plan and budget.
It's Brian Haley speaking. I'd move that we recommend to council the approval of the budget.
Thank you.
Second
Anybody?
to that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
All in
And
favor?
all in favor, if you could.
Yay.
Yay.
Aye.
Hey.
And any nays? Okay, so that passes. Thank you. All right. Moving along here. So moving then to our, sorry, I'm just juggling here different screens. Our subcommittee reports. One is on the digital economy. And I think what we were really hoping is for Martin and I to be at the same meeting in the same room to talk a little bit about that strategy, in which I understand Martin is not available to join us today. So
Oh,
we
he'll
may
be here at 5:30,
go at 5:30. Okay,
but he won't be presenting today, so
but he
we
won't
can
be
just,
presenting. Okay,
yeah.
so I'd like to suggest that this just be an item that we move then to our next committee meeting. Do I have to ask for a motion to do that, Steph? No. Okay,
Nope.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, well then 5.2, looking at the Rural Island Economic Partnership. We know that a number of attendees participated at the conference. Of course, this is attended by other rural islands off the West Coast here. Would like to just sort of open that up to the floor for those who did attend to share what they learned, what their experience was, and then from there talking about our next steps in terms of any initiatives that we may want to move forward with. So I'll just open up the floor to that.
Who did go?
So Jamie and Jody. Jody, you attended as well, correct?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Levin, did you want to start the conversation or?
Feel free to start, Jody.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I thought it was the first forum that I had attended, except for online forums. I thought it was very good. And I think there are, I think for Bowen Island, even though we're part of Metro Vancouver, I think there are opportunities to really grow and work collaboratively with the other rural islands. I was there for the tourism, so there was other forums going on, but I was involved specifically in responsible tourism, and so I noticed that was sent out. There was the resolution regarding housing, which I think is really good. They did a really great job. So I want to make sure that that is forwarded to our housing committee. I don't know if other people have read that. I think once again, I think there's opportunities for Bowen Island to work collaboratively with them. And I think they put together a really great resolution. The tourism resolution hasn't been finalized, but I certainly want to work collaboratively. One of the things that I'm hoping that we can get out of it is like a destination, plan, a sustainable, responsible tourism plan, pledge that all the rural islands could be part of for stewardship. So, but as Levin mentioned, the last day we had the ferry commissioner there. There was lots of really good forums, and I thought it was great. And I see opportunities there, so I think it's good for us to be involved in that.
Thank you, Jody. Jamie, did you want to chime in as well in terms of your time participating?
Sure. It was a great forum. It was great to meet other people from the other islands, to hear of their successes and challenges, and realize that we're all on the same little islands, and it's pretty similar what we talked about. I represented the arts, which maybe didn't have enough support in the forum. I was on a panel, but we just want to make sure that arts and culture is at the table in all conversations. So I just made sure that I was there representing that. But I thought it was very worthwhile to go.
Good. Yeah, Kirsten speaking. It surprises me that there wasn't more represented there, because when I do think of the Gulf Islands, I always think of the very rich artist communities and a lot of the artistic works that are being done. So I actually think that would be one element that would be key to the local economy is the local art and culture.
Yeah, I did share that. So hopefully the next forum, we will have a little bit more representation and yeah.
Okay.
But to your point also, so and adding to and echoing also what Jody and Jamie said, what was great for me to experience is that, in fact, all of the islands like us, we are quite in a similar boat. It's like it's due to the incredible, mostly leadership and entrepreneurship of citizens and locals seeing a need, rolling up the sleeves and starting initiatives that things start to grow. And like that, we were also exposed to the initiatives, for example, on Gabriola that hosted us. It was so beautiful to see what happens there from nothing to something. But the potential of learning more from each other and with each other, and also how people now are stepping up to work on behalf of the bigger challenges, like transportation is an issue for everybody. Housing is an issue for everybody. And Jody, what you said about the amendment also for housing was really strong. I was part of that group too. So there's very strong things coming out, and it's a pledge, I believe, to be. We were strongly present. I think there were 10 people from Bowen that went over, and I think it's very beneficial for us as an island to learn from that, but also to contribute to it. So for me, it's been a big motivator to do even more and also use these resources in order to be supported. So the whole thing about donut economics brought me also there. I think there's so many things that can grow from that. And they are now looking into more provincial grants in order to scale things, to have different conversations with the big stakeholders. And I really think that's going to help a lot. So I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen this year. And Martin could speak to that. He was there too. There's now a first proposal being brought to the province also to build that kind of platform that's been talked about in the last day. To build an exchange platform across all of the islands. And that could be also, how could Bowen be a pilot on that, also economically? So I was really happy that I spent my time over there. And also meeting you, Jody, and meeting you there, Jamie, with a glass of wine or a beer. It was a kind of extra luxury coming with that. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, good comments, good feedback. Yes, Steph?
So Martin is actually at the Rural Islands Partnership meeting right now. He's just been appointed or elected
I
to
think
their
he took over.
board.
Yeah, he took over from
Vaughn?
Vaughn. Thank you. Yes. He'll make a great representative of Bowen there.
Yeah.
So I understand then there's an ongoing dialogue that will be taking place until the next forum. Okay.
I just was asking Jody about these resolutions. There's a glimmer of an email where it refers to a resolution, but wondering if there is going to be some sort of official statement of what they are and something we can use as supporting material.
You shared a link, though I guess it's not in the minutes or the agenda. They only released the housing one.
Okay.
It's very strong, and that's what I was saying. I think it should be shared with our housing committee, because there could be, like I said, it would be great for Bowen Island to be involved in that and those initiatives. The other resolutions, I think there's 6 of them coming. It was very rushed, and I have the sense that they haven't been finalized. They said they haven't been finalized, so those will be coming.
Okay. So I guess next meeting with Martin.
So, and tomorrow, if anybody wants to attend, there is the online form. I think it's 6 o'clock tomorrow or something like that. Anyways, it's on their newsletter. You can sign up for it.
Is that maybe a link we can share with the committee members?
Yeah, I'll forward it right now. It's an email, Connection Cafe.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like maybe our next committee meeting, we can take a look at those those recommendations, take a closer look at some of the results. Is there anything else that we wanted to add before moving on to the next agenda
Oh,
item?
here's Martin.
Oh, here he is. Okay, good.
Let's blindside him.
I wasn't sure if he'd be able to join. Okay, this is good. Oh, hi, Martin.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm joining late.
No, thanks for joining. We've been patiently waiting for you to join and to share some information from the Rural Island Economic
Yeah,
Forum.
fresh off the press.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So the floor is all yours.
Oh, for real? Okay. So we just finished a board meeting. It was my first one. Well, it's the first one as a board member. There's a lot of momentum coming off of the forum. There's in particular, 2 working groups are getting started. As you might know, there were a few key resolutions at the end of the forum. It was in terms of housing, then shared capacity are probably going to start in terms of housing and shared services. So shared services as in building a network of needs and capacities between all the islands and wiring in the different businesses across the region with consumers and even potentially funding opportunities. So we have the next meeting in July. It's more of strategic planning for those working groups and a new governance structure. So there's a lot of activity currently.
Well, thank you. Sounds exciting.
Yeah, I'll be happy to go into details on anything. I'm just, if you have any questions.
Well, I'm noticing we've got maybe another 3 minutes left to speak of this agenda item. Just as a comment, I don't think there's any part of British Columbia where housing isn't the top issue. So it does really affect all aspects, especially from an economic development point of view. It's hard to labor and having that population available to participate in the economy is certainly an important aspect of it. But Martin, if you just had a few more minutes to share a bit more, that would be welcome. Yeah.
Are there any specific questions or maybe points of interest, or do you want me to just kind of go over impressions from my side?
Mm-hmm. Well, we could certainly ask the members if there are any questions, any specific questions regarding the forum or what the board is now working on.
Yeah, it's Roger. I'm assuming we want to narrow this down as to our next steps if we want to incorporate any of this. So we might want to follow along with what were the highest priorities coming out. So were those the 2 then, shared services and housing as being the most hot topics?
Officially, it's the key resolutions, of which there's 4 or 5. And they're published. I'll share a link later for the details of the way they were formulated at the end of the forum. I don't think REAP has capacity. I'm pretty sure we don't have capacity right now to start on all 4 or 5. The 2 that I mentioned, housing and shared services, have not officially been made the 2 to start with yet. It's just still in discussion, but it's going to be a subset of the key resolutions of the 4 or 5 that we start off this year. And there will definitely be space and need for councils like ours from Bowen to participate and cross-share information and data, as well as, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
It's Brian Haley speaking. I have a question of Martin. Martin, you were talking about shared services. In the community economic development plan, there'd also been mention of shared equipment on occasion as well. What sorts of things were talked about in terms of shared services that might be a cost saving for all of the islands involved?
Yeah, the shared services came out of a working session at the forum where we actually split into two subgroups. Levin was there with me into the group that worked on when in our subgroup. So it wasn't any specific in our form or a process for people to identify what would be those shared services. Essentially, kind of like a meta solution, so that people can, on an ongoing basis, identify, coordinate, and align group around pieces across the islands where they could collaborate on. The other subgroup was working on a specific shared service, which was, if I remember correctly, related to housing. So there was a separate group just on housing, but within our shared services subgroup, one focused on, well, for example, legal services, construction, coordination, specifics to housing projects. So I don't know if that answered your question. I think if I can try to summarize, the answer again is right now it's more about creating a platform where we can surface what those services are.
Okay, thanks, Martin.
That's very interesting. Anything else before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay. Then we can move on to then 5.3, low impact tourism, and the email we received regarding signage. There being maybe a lack of signage for tourism. That was sort of an email that we did receive. And so, Steph, what would be the protocol there? Is that in terms of responding to that email? Are we sort of looking for comments from the committee?
I think the email was just intended to inform, and I did a standard response saying it's been received and may be addressed. Jody has done a bunch of awesome signage since then. And so I thought it was worth still including, and that way, A, Jody can report on that work, and B, because signage is a part of the economic development plan, maybe the group could talk about if they want to do more, if that's a priority for this year, or what. Jody?
Well, I want to just couple comments. I thought it was very generous of Teresa to give the visitors a ride like that. I'm surprised. Normally, the bus drivers do not just take people on a rainy day like this was back in March. The bus drivers are pretty good at redirecting and suggesting people don't go on the 281 bus and end up at Eagle Cliff. And certainly at the visitor center when we're there, we suggest that they don't take the bus. So something happened there, and that was very generous of Teresa to do that. We got a grant. We have created some more signage, and we've run into a recent little issue, which we have to kind of sort out. One of them was wayfinding to Artisan Square, as that's one of the priorities, but we put up a couple of signs and they were taken down. So I've been trying to find out the protocol and what's allowed and stuff. So I've been working with, engaging with the staff member at BIM about that. So yeah, I mean, signage, and also I think Google was mentioned. Google is problematic, and I am working with somebody to correct Google and try to make it more accurate and informative. So trying to take action on some of these things, but also generally, I know since I've moved on Bowen, there's not a desire to have signs everywhere as well. So trying to look at, the other aspect is we've just created a new map is coming. It was supposed to arrive today, but it'll come tomorrow, where I've been very conscious on the map that we're creating it's aimed at visitors and directing them responsibly. It also has content on things like wildfires and doggy do's and don'ts. So a lot of time and effort was put in that to help direct and manage visitors in a responsible way. So we're trying different ways to do that.
I have a question, Jody. How much of that, or in terms of signage, or I guess just informational materials, can people get in Horseshoe Bay or on the ferry before they get here, so they have the information, you know, before they're stuck at Eagle Cliff, sort of thing?
Well,
or plan their trip, or you know, if they don't make the right turn and come visit you in the you know, information shack, where are they getting their info?
well, a lot of people, I think, as the letter says, a lot of people go on Google. So for instance, like I said, I'm working with somebody and we're trying to do how to get to washrooms. We've got a new thing that will hopefully, and Google's crowdsourced, so it's not an easy thing to correct. But we've got like a new thing where to find washrooms, how to get to Artisan Square if you're walking. So we're trying multifaceted ways. I mean, if there was one single way to attract people and tell them how to do it, that would be really great, but it's not. I even had today a problem with, as we know, the BC Ferries website. If you try to access information one way, you get one answer. And if you do the other, as far as the schedule goes, so I have to email them now and say, look, what's going on here? If you access it this way, you get the schedule. But if you access it this way, it doesn't talk about the dangerous cargo. And so I've had in the past week, 2 people complaining about, they didn't know about the skip sailing. So we try, our map will be on the ferry. Our website, once again, we'll be investing more and more time trying to make it accessible, and we'll also try on our social channels, but you know, it's an ongoing effort.
Yeah, fair enough. There's another mapping app called maps.me that I have noticed, and I use it sometimes, but it has more of our local trails on there.
Maps.me?
Maps.me is the app. It's also crowdsourced for the most part.
Yeah.
But I run around Killarney somewhat regularly, and 90% of the time there's tourists hunched over trying to figure out how to find a trail. That's the app that they have open. So
really, I've never heard of it before. I will check it out right now, though.
Okay.
And,
Yeah,
you know,
like that has, like, you know, there was a trail to the Mammoth on that, and like it has the sort of other trails there as well, so it's worth checking it out.
and,
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So that's where things get a bit problematic, like a map to the Mammoth.
No, but yeah, so it's worth looking at because for many reasons, probably for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I didn't know about that one. I mean, Google is sort of the standard that a lot of people use, right? Thank you.
Jody, thanks for that update. And you know, it's always a good topic, you know, when we look at this multi-channel, approach really to get the information to tourists that are coming on island. And I know one other idea that has popped up that I know Martin and I've talked about is developing just a Bowen Island app that can kind of pull the information together as well. Just another one of those channels, but that could be a conversation for another time. But in the meantime, that's great news that there's a new map coming out. I know that I use it quite a bit. So thanks so much, Jody. On that note, if there aren't any other questions, moving on to the next agenda item 5.4, in which I believe we did the MRDT agenda, the sub item. Is that correct, Steph?
Yeah, I think we so we want to talk about what it sounds like, Brian, you've taken a look at the economic development plan, and Cooper, you're passionate about the MRDT. Kirsten has taken on digital economy. Jody's doing tourism. If there's anything in that engagement report, it's linked in the information items number 8.2. maybe think about what kind of work you're interested in being on a subcommittee for.
Yeah, because
Was-
these are really, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, just when there's a chance, there was something I wanted to comment on the last item.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'll wait till there's a pause in it. No problem. I didn't mean to interrupt.
This is a good pause.
Oh, okay. It was just on mapping, another data source that would be good to look at for making sure that it's accurate is OpenStreetMap, which is what a lot of smaller mapping projects are based on. And a fair amount of them do use that. The other point is actually something from an accessibility perspective that would help with mapping is when going through and correcting maps and correcting pins, making sure that the pin is actually at the front door of the establishment and not halfway across the parking lot. Really helps from an accessibility perspective to actually finding the front of a business rather than the side or, as I said, just the middle of the parking lot. I tend to depend on GPS quite a bit when going to new areas, as do many others. For that purpose, making sure the pin is in the right spot would be helpful.
Great.
Thank you for that comment. And Brian, I see that your hand is up.
Thanks. Just on the issue of the CED plan item 5.4, as a newer member, I guess I'm not really aware of how many subcommittees have been struck to deal with the implementation of the recommendations, or at least these areas, these development strategies within the plan. So, I know that the chair and Martin have been involved in the digital economy. Was that previously identified through a prior work plan discussion, or where are we at in terms of the strategies within the plan and how they've been divvied up, and what are we prioritizing from a work plan perspective?
Well, it's Kirsten here. I'm happy to respond, but I will invite other committee members to also chime in. I mean, that report is large and robust and going in a number of different directions. To be blunt, I don't think we were entirely happy with the report when we did receive it. However, I think our approach has been for those items that are of particular interest to committee members, that's it's initiative or a prior that they identify and want to run with, they are then welcome to run with it. So for example, one of the suggestions came about a working remotely, having sort of a work hub on island. So that was one thing that I sort of dove into and organized a series of consultations to just gather a bit more information and spoke to other hubs on the coast. And I still think my draft report still hasn't been finalized. That just reminds me I should probably get that done. So it really is one that, if there's an initiative in that report that really speaks to you that you would like to take on, you are more than welcome to then propose that to the committee and to and obviously we have budget to support you in that endeavor as well.
So in terms of the newer members on the committee, I suppose if we all take an opportunity to review the plan and then perhaps email yourself and Steph with our area of interest, then we can discuss it at the next meeting and see if there's other members that might like to join in within that subcommittee. And I guess the idea is that the subcommittee should also then include individuals on the island that are interested in that area, so that we're in fact gathering local expertise in that subject matter.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is
And is there a
Steph,
formal
would you
list
mind
somewhere?
sending that out? Sorry.
It is linked. It's item 8.2 on this agenda. Item 8.1, information items of the council strategic plan. This is the community economic development plan. It will be linked to every agenda. And as Kirsten said, it is more of an engagement summary report than it is sort of a strategic directional guiding document. So with that said, Like the MRDT, for example, or any other kind of revenue generating types of initiatives from tourism are not mentioned in the plan, but that's okay. We can still bring it up for discussion. And I'll just call it plan element number 4 point whatever. It's terms.
Is there a list of existing subcommittees or do they get reset?
They're evolving, and yeah, so Kirsten and I are working together on the co-working space, but she's the digital lead, and so Martin was working on this open source platform. Now Martin and Kirsten are working.
It's fairly organic.
Okay.
Yeah. I can send you a list of past committees of people you don't know, but yeah, for now it's just whoever wants to help Jody with tourism and whoever wants to help Martin and Kirsten with digital. So far. But if there are no more questions on just, I mean, just so the action item here would be to think about, to take a look at the item 8.2 and think about what you'd like to, what you're jazzed about being involved with. That said, Cooper, did you want to talk about MRDT? And we have our CEO.
This is Cooper speaking. It's sort of a broader thing, just that I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on tourism and bringing tourists here. And I don't feel like there's enough emphasis, or I'm just maybe unaware of sources of generating revenue for the municipality to cover the infrastructure and the sort of just the strain on the community that the tourism brings. And so trying to figure out, you know, how we're going to pay for a new sewer in the Cove, where there's a lot of businesses that, you know, support tourists, but there's nothing from the tourists going to support the sewer. You know, and I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on the sort of big sexy projects like an MUP, but for every kilometer of MUP we can rebuild a new sewer system. So like basically how are we getting revenue to support tourism initiatives and even the non-sexy stuff like, you know, how to flush a toilet on the island. And see, like an MRDT is a established plan to do that. And if you look at the regional map of MRDTs in the Lower Mainland, Bowen is like the nexus of blank, where there isn't an MRDT covering us, which just seems strange to me. I don't know, maybe Liam knows if there's other programs like that. But I basically think that anywhere that we can extract money from tourists to build infrastructure that supports the island as a whole seems like an important idea.
If it's okay,
Yes, please.
Liam. Cooper, I couldn't agree with you more. Well, maybe not all the things you said, but a lot of the ideas behind what you're saying. And is that a thing? Do people believe that for every kilometer of multi-use path, we could build a new sewer treatment plant?
I don't know exactly what the math is, but wasn't it something like 1.6 million a kilometer for the MUP?
It's about $1 million a kilometer, depending on the terrain.
Okay, fine. So 5 to 7 kilometers of MUP, we can build a new sewer system.
We could expand the existing one. Yeah. So yeah, that's a fairer comment. But anyway, and then also I want to be abundantly clear too that Delta, West Vancouver, Lions Bay, Anmore, New Westminster, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge, all of those communities don't have MRDT either. So but I hear you loud and clear. There is an opportunity here for us, but we are most certainly not the only municipality in the metro region that doesn't have it. There's Surrey, Richmond, and Vancouver, and North Van, those guys do. But anyway, staff found a previous staff report from 2019 where the MRDT had looked like almost a last reading, like it got really close to being adopted. And then it fell off the rails. Maybe it was the pandemic. That was just before I arrived, so I don't know exactly what happened there. Oh yeah, so Cooper, thank you for sending that along. So you'll see that in your map here. Maybe what I'll do quickly, just so we can put this to bed.
I dropped the link to the map in there too.
Yeah. So this is the map that Cooper and I were referencing, and Councillor Jurgensen, I'm sorry you won't be able to see it, but essentially it highlights the municipalities that have MRDT, and the coloration on the map indicates whether they're at a 3% levy or a 2% levy. The orange is the 2%. And so in the metro region, we have Burnaby at a 2%, North Van, Vancouver, Richmond, and Surrey at 3%.
I think it's also, if you zoom out a bit more and you see like the Sunshine Coast is covered, Whistler's covered. So like in terms of high levels of tourism, I do think it's safe to say that we're relatively alone in not having one.
Yeah, I mean, the province is, when you zoom out in its entirety, you can see that it's less than half of the municipalities or local governments that actually have it. But regardless, I'm just trying to stick to the facts if I can. But the point is well taken that it is an opportunity for Bowen to consider, because it's a revenue stream that's available to the municipality and to the tourism sector that could be tapped into. And, you know, it might be worth sharing with the group that 2019 staff report that went to council, because it had some good information in there and some rough estimates about what the revenue potential would be based on the, you know, at that time, the estimated revenue from the short-term rental market on Bowen, they were estimating at that time it was around $1.4 to $1.9 million a year. And so at between 2 to 3% tax rate, that would generate, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000 to $50,000 a year. And then the scheme that was being considered at that time was that 50% of the revenue would go towards tourism Bowen Island initiatives in support of tourism Bowen Island, and the remainder would go towards affordable housing, and specifically to the Birch project, the Bowen Island Community Resiliency Housing Society, I think is what it stands for. And so I think it would be, you know, a welcome revenue stream. It's not a big cash cow that's gonna all of a sudden like give us oodles of money to do tons of things with, but it is something that can be help the tourism tourism sector be a little more sustainable. So they had a more.
I think that probably understates things. I mean, I gave Jody my back of the envelope math, which she says was too generous, but it's still, you know, like if I search on Airbnb, we have about 220 Airbnbs, and then there's other sites. The average is about $200, $225 a night at 50% occupancy. That generates, you know, more than $40,000 or $50,000. That generates more like 250. I think. I mean, there's a lot more Airbnbs than are officially registered as well, and Airbnb would implement that, you know, from a platform side of things. So
yeah, and that like again, and that was 2019 data, right? And so a lot has changed. It has grown dramatically, and so I think, and we actually have the current council. I can't speak completely on behalf of them, but I do know that they have identified that they are interested in reconsidering the MRDT and would like to look at that again And so there is a desire to advance that. And so I think it's most certainly an opportunity that we should explore.
Okay, awesome.
So, Liam, it's just Kirsten speaking. Is this a recommendation that can come from the committee to council? What would be the proper process if we did want the municipality to carefully consider this revenue source in light of all the changes that have happened, and in light that that the rental suites are generating maybe more revenue than they were in 2019? Is there something the committee can do to bring this to the forefront?
Most certainly, Kirsten, the committee could make a recommendation to council to consider further exploration or be bolder to recommend implementation. The approval process does require some engagement with the sector, though, so it's not a simple council directed decision. There does need to be proper engagement.
So maybe this could then be a project that we could work on,
Yeah.
just as we have with other projects, and something that could be taken on and do the proper engagement and do the research and then bring it forward at a later date.
Most certainly, yes.
It sounds like, Cooper, you're quite passionate about this. Maybe this is a project for you.
I'm happy to look into it. I mean, I'm not super passionate about this specifically. I'm more passionate about just finding sources of revenue that support infrastructure. So this was one of them that seemed relatively easy. I think Jamie is trying to jump in here.
Oh, just a quick comment. This is definitely a missed opportunity. But I'm curious why it never went any further than, Steph, you said the third reading or second reading. Why did it sort of?
Jody will know.
Oh, okay.
So a couple things. It did come forward. Emma Chow did a lot of work on it. She led the engagement process. There's sort of very defined process of how it goes forward. There's also very defined ways in which the MRDT can be spent. So for instance, as it is now, it can't go towards the sewer, unfortunately. Emma led it. It was a very short process. Cooper, I shared the business plan that was put forward. So you have to do certain things, and then only certain accommodators have a vote. The Airbnb has one vote, but it didn't get that far because it didn't pass with the on-island accommodators who had a vote at the time. And then COVID hit, so it was shelved because there was so much uncertainty, and that lasted for a couple of years. I think it's worth revisiting, absolutely. But Cooper, I know you did some, calculations, and I would love your amount. But I know a couple of months ago, Daniel, who does pay to monitor the short-term rentals, he presented a report about how many were registered and how many he thought they were. It was pretty much based on what he was reporting was what we kind of knew at the time when the MRD process was going through. So I don't think it's changed that much. Plus, also part of the short-term rental is there's limitations on people only being able to operate like 120 nights per year and stuff. So so there's certain things that need to be considered that maybe haven't been considered. But yeah, it's
happy to look into it more. Happy to look into it more. But I think my general point, I'm not specifically wedded to the MRDT concept, but I think as the Community Economic Development Council, we need to think about where the money to do a lot of the stuff that we want to do is coming from. And I think there's a imbalance on talking about all the cool stuff we want to do versus figuring out how to pay for it. And so I want to make sure we're talking about that too.
I like it.
So on a related note, do we segue into the empty homes tax?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm wondering.
Sorry, it's Liam here. Jody, so are you advocating that Bowen be included in that grouping of municipalities that
Well,
collect?
it was recently in the news, so it just reminded me of that. And I'm a little bit, I know when it came out, and I wasn't totally following it, but I know that when it came out at the time, I think there were people on Bowen that didn't want it. So Bowen asked for an exemption. But if we're looking at ways for the municipality to get, help for the infrastructure, is this a time now for council to consider looking at this again? Because the news article certainly talked about other municipalities opting in now, and the amount of revenue that was over the last few years that they received. So it seems to me that maybe if we're looking at the MRT as a missed opportunity, maybe we should be looking at this one as well.
Right. I don't know the tax scheme very well, but I do know that the Vancouver empty home tax is different than the provincial one. And Vancouver is a unique municipality in BC with its own charter, its own legislation, and I believe that they have a greater level of flexibility with their empty home tax and the ability to actually recover the money for them for their municipal function. And I know that Kelowna, for example, is seeking the same level of authority that Vancouver has. But it's something to consider and could do a little more research on, but yeah, I don't know a lot about is that a revenue stream that flows back to the municipalities themselves, or does the province take that?
I think, sorry, it's Kirsten speaking. It's funny because I made the assumption that it's a revenue generator for the province and not for local government. But again, that could be something to look into and just to verify.
In the article, and I haven't followed this closely, so obviously need to do a bit of research, but it's my understanding it's like the MRDT, the province collects it, but then gives it back to the municipality. So this article I read, it was like 300 million went back to municipalities over the past few years since it was adopted. And the article I read was also talking about new municipalities opting in to collect it. So, and I know the Rural Island Economic Forum, as part of the housing resolution, they're talking about creating one because the Gulf Islands and Bowen as well, people have second homes and so, but we're all struggling for affordable housing. So is this something, and that's where I'm thinking not only Bowen, but maybe as the islands trusts and the Gulf Islands, we look at this, is this something that we want to consider?
So almost raise it to the rural island economic development forum as an agenda item.
It came out as a part of the resolution. So what do? They've got a few different ones. That the province government establish an income tax program where income generated from secondary housing units is non-taxable, and where people offering rents at affordable rates can deduct that income from their income taxes. That a vacancy tax, a proportion to house value and restricted to income, be collected from vacant homes on rural islands and redirected to support development of affordable, accessible housing. So there's a few different ones that they've included in here. How this plays out with the provincial one, I'm not totally sure, but I'm just thinking if we're looking at how does Bowen Island get more support for infrastructure that we need, I think not only do we look at the MRDT, but we also look at this as revisit it, because at one point it was proposed and the island opted out of it.
Okay. Well, I think these are really great discussions, great information being shared just in light of time, knowing that we're trying to sort of stick to our agenda, the talking points of our agenda. At this stage, is there maybe a decision or a motion coming from the members to something to look at in terms of next steps, or Steph, do you want to provide some guidance maybe?
I'm thinking that action items might be more appropriate now and maybe resolutions
Later on?
later. Yeah. So for actions now, maybe Cooper will look a little bit deeper into MRDT potential here, and Jody same on empty house. Report back.
And then
A briefing paper. Okay, thank you.
I have one question, with food and beverage. Is there a tax as well on food and beverage? I mean, they put a stress on the infrastructure. I don't know if that's something from other communities, or if our community can create our own tax on food and beverage that would go specifically to infrastructure, maybe.
What do you mean by tax on food and beverage?
So if you go eat in a restaurant, there's an additional tax.
Oh,
on-
that's a provincial tax. We don't have that kind of tax.
No, an additional tax on top of the.
Or broadly, there's the empty home thing, there's the MRDT. Are there types of sources of revenue that we should be thinking about here that we haven't discussed yet?
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a distinction between a tax and perhaps a voluntary fee. So because the term tax gets used, but there could be opportunities for voluntary fees, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really like the ideas that people are thinking about, and unfortunately, municipal revenue streams are really constrained to the primary stream being property tax, and that's the only real taxing authority that we have. And then there are a few of these other ones like the MRDT, and I actually sit on a technical finance advisory working group with UBCM and several other municipalities that were selected throughout the province to work on the modernization of financial mechanisms and tools for local government. And so it's an initiative that I was actually first involved in back in 2013 when I was still at the province, and it's been a long slog with very little traction. The province and the federal government have a view, and it's not a bad view, but that there's only one taxpayer. And so they're reluctant to give up any of their revenue streams to local governments because it ends up, hitting that same one taxpayer. And so there's been a lot of push and a lot of effort going into looking at alternative financing opportunities and revenue streams for local governments, because in my view, local governments deliver the broadest suite of services to communities and they're closest to those communities. And we often end up providing services that aren't within our mandate as prescribed in legislation, but yet we don't have the revenue to support that. And so housing is a great one. Like, that's a provincial responsibility that local governments end up having to carry. And, mental health and addictions and homelessness could be another one. And so I like the ideas that I'm hearing around the table, and I think we should keep the creative thinking going, but know that there's a lot of other people trying to crack this nut too. And I'll look a little bit more into the spec tax or the empty home tax, and see if it's a viable option for Bowen too. And I encourage others to do the same. But I'm not aware of any other like low-hanging fruit opportunities that might be there, barring like creating some municipal corporations to get into like telecom or forestry or something like that, which I don't think is something that is really intriguing to Bowen Island.
This is Cooper again. I used to live, so this was in the States, but I lived in a ski town in Park City, Utah. And the city had a bifurcated property tax. I don't know if that's an option here. So basically homes where the resident had listed it as their primary residence paid a certain rate on the assessed value. and homes where it wasn't a primary residence paid a different rate. So basically, second homeowners paid a disproportionate amount of the property tax base, which left a bunch of great, like, super high quality infrastructure, great public services, awesome community engagement paid for by people coming that weren't residents.
That's what the empty home tax is, or the spec tax, depending on how you want to call it. And that was most, like, very recently introduced here in BC, and it's being done in a sort of phased in approach, where they started with, I think, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 communities, and they just recently expanded it to a few more. In the United States, the municipalities have a lot more, well, every state is different in terms of what they allow local governments to do, but yeah.
There's no concept of like a split property tax for primary and secondary homeowners.
Well, no, there is, and that's what this empty homes tax is about. So, like, if you have if it's not your primary home and it's a secondary home, then you would pay a higher tax rate. And then there is another tax, which is tax on it's maybe could be considered a luxury tax, and it's based on high value homes. And so there's an inclining tax rate once your home exceeds a certain value. But again, that's a restricted area that applies to.
Thank you, Liam, for sharing that information. And I'm just aware that we just have a few more minutes left of our meeting, and we're still hoping to have a quick update in regards to the Hearth, the Cultural Master Plan, as well as Tourism Bowen Island. Liam, I do see that your hand is up. I don't know if you wanted to just make one very brief comment before we move on.
Well, I keep it short, Kirsten. But linked to what you said, Liam, the small window of creating revenue for the island is more taxation, and that's in dead-end roads. But what you see, and that's the basic fundament under the whole thing of the donut economics, and Nanaimo is really launching that now, and I'm involved in Amsterdam too, is how to create what you started saying, these public-private partnerships and creating cooperatives and other initiatives together, economical initiatives where revenues go back to the community and to the island. And I think that's a different conversation, but that's the way in where many communities and many regions choose for right now, not going for more taxation, but creating more collective revenues in what they call circular economies. And I believe that's worth having a next conversation also with the committee. But also respecting the time, Kirsten, I think it's just an addition to the question of Liam, but it's definitely, there's a lot of potential there to learn also from the other islands. There was a lot of these examples shared in the REAP also, but that's for the next conversation. So,
okay, thank you, Liam, for that. Okay, well, if there's no objection, I think we would like to just briefly move on to updates, just because we're reaching the end of our meeting. And once again, if I could maybe turn things over to Jody.
Hello. In addition to sort of what I said before, I guess, the visitor center is open. And thankfully I've got staff this year. Last year was not good, so this year seems much better. The Victoria Day Saturday cancellations was challenging, of course. And there seems to be, I think the repercussion is that I think it was so widely publicized, there could be repercussion, that people are not choosing to come here due to the ferry and the uncertainty. So that's that. We will be releasing, we conducted a master plan engagement with residents, and businesses will be doing a plan release towards the end of the month, hopefully. And we're also doing a visitor survey that we're launching with the map, and that will go through the summer and the fall.
Oh, that's excellent. Great. Okay, well, thank you, Jody. And then Jamie, Sorry, I was just going to say, any questions for Jody before we move on?
I have a question. It's part of the engagement. There are a lot of conversations about different opportunities for revenue from tourism. Is that going to be in the master plan? I think some things like donations on the ferry or
certainly the part of the conversation is the voluntary, what ways can we encourage voluntary contributions? That will be looked at, and that's an ongoing process of, is there going to be an actual recommendation in the plan? I don't think so. It's something that we're going to continue to look at, that how can we maybe do that? Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we move on? Hearing none, then moving on to the hearth. And Jamie, if there's an update you'd like to share with the committee.
Hi, I can give you a brief update on kind of what we're doing, and then I can speak a little bit on the cultural master plan. The stage out front of the hearth is almost officially open. They're staining it today. We have our celebration on June 25th to basically bless the stage and the art piece that was carved specifically for that space. We have had a couple of impromptu events on the stage, and it's been very popular. So that's one update. We have a full roster of art shows scheduled for this 2023 season. We also have a call out that's gone out to our artist community for the 2024 season. Haven't seen any applications yet, but if it's anything like last year, we will have more than we have weeks. So we'll try and fit them all in. We've got a great team here at the Hearth. It's finally come together after my 3-year anniversary, and we're working hard and doing some great things here at the Hearth. As for the cultural master plan, we updated the plan last year. We have some new initiatives that are based on the recommendations from the plan, and we're working hard on following up on those and moving forward.
Well, thank you, Jamie.
Sorry, Steph, that you mentioned a standing item of the cultural master plan. Is that what you were sort of expecting? Yes? Cool. Great. Thank you. Any questions? Comments?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jamie. That's great. And then just moving down in terms of updates, are there any updates from council? I don't know if council wants to. Oh. Right, is that Levan?
Yeah, I'm muting him.
Yeah, because I was going to say
he won't mute.
I was going to say turning off your video may help, because we're not hearing anything. So if you turn off video, we may get the audio.
Okay.
Okay.
Counselor?
Sorry, in that garbled audio, all I caught there was council.
No one caught anything. It's just that you're next if you have an update.
Okay, I think a lot of the last meeting was focused on the Cape Roger Curtis project, of course, but there was several councillors, including the mayor, who attended the economic development committee, the Rural Partnership Economic Development Committee. I wish Andrew was here to give more on that, because he was there.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't think of anything specific that would apply to this committee at this time.
That's okay.
Okay,
that's
thank
fine.
you. Yeah. Any questions for Councillor Jurgensen? Okay. Hearing none then, any updates from staff that would be relevant for the committee?
I have one.
Okay, Steph.
Volunteer appreciation event
Yeah.
on Tuesday, 13th, golf course, music.
Oh, it sounds like so much fun. It sounds like so much fun. I hope everybody's did get the invitation and had a chance to RSVP. I'm very disappointed I am unable to make it, but it does sound very fabulous. And hopefully the volunteers in our committee will be able to attend.
Liam, do you have any update?
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for participating and being involved with this committee and volunteering your valuable time. Really appreciate it. And I like the discussion around the table. So I hope that creativity continues to flow. Thanks.
Thanks, Liam. Well, and I can certainly say we appreciate your participation, and certainly Steph. So important for the work that the committee is doing is all the effort that Steph puts forward, for sure. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, yes, Steph.
Just for the other business, if people want to think about next meeting, if you're interested in running for a vice chair.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's not a huge role. It's a step in if needed role. One of the great things, if you could review the minutes, that's a good thing to do. And you often get invited to things.
Yeah.
And good job, Kirsten.
Your
Well
sound's
done.
funny. Oh.
I remember I did step forward as vice chair because
And now look at you.
Kind of a cushy job.
You
And
did
here I
it.
am.
Yeah.
Making do.
Thank you for putting your hand up.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And so, yeah, that's a really good reminder for those who would like to step into the role of vice chair. Please put
Send me an email.
Yeah, exactly. Just email Steph and then we'll add it to the agenda next time. All right.
Great.
Well, I think we're ready for adjournment. Do we vote on the adjournment? No? Okay. That's great. Well,
You have the power to just call it.
Well, listen, thank you everybody for finding time in your evening to meet. Really appreciate it, and appreciate all the great ideas and comments and effort that the committee is putting forward. And on that note, the meeting is now adjourned. So thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.